Welcome to Sold with Webinars, a podcast that aims to uncover how the most successful experts, coaches, consultants, and e-course professionals sell their products and services with just one sales presentation or webinar. A simple sales webinar can transform the business and life of a solopreneur. And this podcast will show you how other experts just like you are generating 6 and 7 figures per year online with their webinars. So let's get started. Hey there, Joel Irway here, and thanks so much for tuning in today. I'm really pumped about today's guest that we had on the show, Charles Byrd. Now, Charles and I go back a few months, and we met in a mastermind in San Diego. And the really cool thing that Charles specializes in is getting people onto his webinars and launching new products, new services, and new businesses using joint venture webinars. And Charles has really mastered the game of attracting new joint venture partners, affiliate promotions, and leveraging the power of webinar promotions to grow his list, grow his product, grow his sales, and grow his business without doing any sort of paid marketing. So I wanted to have Charles on the show to really teach you how you can grow your business, how you can promote your webinar through partnerships and JV promotions. And so you're going to learn a lot on today's show. I want you to take extra special attention because if you don't have money to really pump into paid advertising just yet, or if you've got paid advertising already taken care of, joint venture partnerships and affiliate promotions are going to take your business to the next level, and it definitely needs to be a part of your marketing strategy. So without further ado, let's get into today's show. Charles, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thank you so much, Joel. Pleasure to be on with you.
Awesome. So I'm really excited to have you on, Charles. So for those people who may not know who you are, why don't you do a quick background and quick introduction about who you are, what your business is, and what's your history with JVs and webinars?
Yeah, so my name's Charles Byrd. I came from a 15-year career in the Silicon Valley and thought, hey, I want to work for no one. So I started my own company and went into the online education space. I followed a friend of mine's system. Danny Inney created a course called the Course Builders Lab. I launched a productivity course focused on teaching entrepreneurs to kill the chaos of information overload by learning to apply Evernote to their business and their life. And I had basically no list. The list I had was just pulling people in from my LinkedIn connections throughout my career. So I had about 700 there, but really, I never even mailed them. It was just a list I came up with, and I learned how to do joint venture partnerships because Danny Inney invited me to an event. He asked me if I would be his director of partnerships, so he became my biggest client. And by learning from a master, he taught me how to do joint ventures. And then I took my background in project and program management and basically my work in the Silicon Valley and being a productivity geek and completely optimized the workflow from just running off like a Google sheet to a full system that is an optimized machine. And so it's really fueled some significant growth, and it's a self-perpetuating system.
Very cool. So for anyone who's listening right now, if you're listening right now and you don't know what we mean when we say joint ventures and partnerships, specifically with webinars, what we're specifically referring to is leveraging other people's audience to promote your own products or services. There's a couple different ways that you can do it. So you can do what they call webinar swaps, which is you take your audience and you promote your partner's webinar to your audience in exchange for promoting your own product to their audience. So there's one way to do it, and the other way to do it is through affiliates or joint ventures, where you do a promotion to your audience with somebody else's product, and you split a portion of the sales. You share in the revenue of whatever sales happen from that webinar. Now, full transparency, when I met Charles, I had never done really anything with JVs or affiliate webinars, and so we were talking about it, and Charles talk about this new product that, well, I shouldn't say it's a new product, but this product that you've been really focusing on launching, your Evernote. Well, I don't want to say Evernote product because we were working on revising that for your own webinar. But talk about your productivity management course that you've been selling, and take my listeners through the journey of the first webinar that you did, like how did you approach a partner, and take them through the journey of where you are now, because you've had some really, really exponential success starting out with no list at all.
Yeah, well, so I built this course. What I did is I piloted the course. I was coaching the CEO of a real estate company, and he invited me to speak on his stage in San Francisco. And so I created effectively a presentation, what became the foundation for my existing webinar, and delivered it from the stage, and got some people to sign up for my course, which the content wasn't created, like I had an outline for it, but it wasn't like a video course at that time. So I delivered it live in webinars, 4 weeks apart. A week apart, 4 sessions. And then that clued me in that I was on the right track. The feedback was good. I didn't need to pivot because I was getting some decent feedback, although not a lot because I didn't have a lot of students. And so I converted that into a video course, added on camera bumpers, this and that. So my first big webinar, well, it's funny. I'm a certified project manager, and I was invited to speak by the Project Management Institute. So my first webinar had over 1,000 people on it.
Nice.
Which it was a really cool opportunity. It wasn't the kind of webinar where it's a partner and you're pitching and all of that. So then basically I had that, I guess, first win under my belt of doing that. And basically I started reaching out to people who I knew had shows or audiences or podcasts, and just told them what I was up to. And in my case, as it turns out, lots of people want to be more productive, and lots of people, in fact, 92% of people I speak to have heard of Evernote. 3/4 of them already have it. And when I'm speaking around the US and Canada, I ask, how many of you have heard of it? How many of you have it? And how many of you know you could be making better use of it? And 3/4 of the hands go up. So actually, my first webinar was with a guy named Tom Poland, who lives in Australia. And his audience was around 3,000 at the time. And he had me on, he does this 5-minute show. He had me on that. And then we did a webinar, and it had 50 people on it. And I converted 18%. So that also let me know I was on the right track. And every time you get a win like that, that's part of your messaging, reaching out to the next group of people. You just, like I always told them right where I was at with the process. And a few other people like that, like Kathy Demers had me on her show. And she's been incredible. She's got a big audience, and she actually doesn't usually work with people who are new to the scene, but she could just tell it was a good message, and it worked great. So yeah, that's kind of how I got started. And then it builds over time. It's not an overnight thing, but if someone shows you how to do it, it's just like anything. It seems like voodoo magic until someone explains it, and then you're like, oh, I could do that.
So to recap real quick, so your strategy for essentially what you're doing is you're leveraging other people's audience to grow your own audience in a nutshell.
Absolutely.
Which is a very, very, it's like anyone who's read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Like he teaches people how to leverage other people's money to finance your dreams. And so it's like leveraging other people's list, and your list is your most important asset in your business, right? Your personal list and other people's lists, that's the single most important asset in your business. So you're leveraging other people's assets to grow your own business, and it's a win-win because you're sharing in the sales. So they get a percentage of your partner gets a percentage of the sales, and you get a percentage of sales, and you're growing your list at the same time.
And you're providing them value on the way too, because like people are thirsty for this. This is one of the things you're looking for, is an audience that your message or product aligns with and really complements. So it's a win for them because you're bringing their people this fresh perspective and good ideas. And it's certainly a win for you because I started with no audience. So it's a way to get in front of people. Like you could build a webinar and mail your, 50 friends on your list. It's not going to do much. So getting in front of other people's developed and nurtured audiences, it's fantastic. And there's no money out of pocket to do it.
Mm-hmm. I want to go back for a second and talk about, you briefly mentioned when you first got started out and you connected with Tom. You said you were reaching out to bloggers and podcasters, right, to connect with them. Tell my listeners a little bit more about what actually happens when you reach out to bloggers and podcasters. Like, what does that process look like?
Yeah, well, in Tom's case, I was invited into a group that was basically focused on joint ventures. So that was kind of I was invited into a fold where there's people there looking for that kind of thing. But I'll tell you a strategy I would recommend, and I did, that was just as effective, and that is find groups that have the kind of people you're looking for on Facebook, like entrepreneur groups, internet marketing type groups. And once you're in one of those groups, it took me a little while to figure this out, because in my world, my Facebook friends were my real friends on planet Earth. Yes, normal friends. But what I noticed was people in these groups would friend each other. And I don't know why. It took me a little bit to figure that out. And it was a paid group, so I was paying to be in there. And then it one day just sunk in, oh, you can make friends with the people in this group and then, stay in the group if it's giving you value. And if it's not, you can not be in the group and then still reach out to all the same people. So a strategy I highly recommend if you don't already have a network and you're not going to a bunch of events, is finding these kind of groups, see who's active in there, who's moving and shaking, comment and like some of their stuff, contribute to the conversation, message them, just say, hey, how about, we jump on a virtual coffee chat, and no one will turn you down. They never, they're like, sure. And then you can just talk about what you're up to, what they're up to, who their audience is. And in the back of your head while you're listening, and you should do a lot more listening than talking, by the way, you're trying to assess if what you have to offer really complements that audience. And nothing about it should be forced. It should be like it really is a compliment. And then you can tell them what you're up to, and if they agree, then take things from there. So I've booked a ton of webinars doing just that.
So I like this strategy, and there's a couple of things that I want to go back and talk about. So to recap, essentially, what you're doing is you're finding your target audience of influencers first, right? So Charles, you're in the productivity space, the project management space, how to become more productive. So you've got a course on how to do this. So you're joining these groups that would have a similar audience, that there would be influencers that have a similar audience to what your message is. Now, the key thing is not just friend requesting them, right? It's not that simple to connect with them. I mean, like, yeah, you can friend request them, but like there's other things that you have to, I would imagine you have to do before they're going to agree to say, okay, yeah, I'll promote you to my webinar. And you mentioned stuff like liking and commenting on their posts. Why would somebody want to do that before you make a big ask of, hey, can you promote my stuff?
Oh man, it's all the difference between if they're going to pay any attention to you. If I just showed up out of the blue and I'm like, hey dude, you want to promote me? The answer is going to be probably go away. But if we've built a relationship over days or weeks or even months on Facebook, like there's people who like and comment on almost everything I post, of course I'm going to have a conversation with them. I see their face every day.
Mm-hmm.
It's in my feed. They're contributing valuable, um, back and forth on things like that. So it just warms you up to them, makes you familiar, and then they're far more likely to want a meeting. Also, if you're in one of these Facebook groups that's focused on entrepreneurship or online marketing or online education or whatever, it's also that is your common platform to say, hey, we're both in this group together. How about we jump on a Skype or Zoom, have a virtual coffee chat? That's another really easy way to do it. And you can nurture this. It doesn't have to be over like this super extended period of time. If you're in a group with someone, you can just ping them and ask. And again, I've never had anyone decline. Why wouldn't they take a meeting,
Yeah. So speaking of somebody from experience who's just getting into this game of leveraging joint venture webinars, I always wanted, like, every time that I talk to him, like, how do I reach out to people, right? Like, what's the strategy? And what it really boils down to is just adding value to them first before you ever ask for anything in return. And even something as simple as, okay, your friend requested them, but like liking their post or sharing their post or sharing an article that they wrote, or that's what I'm doing now. Is anyone that I really that I respect and I want to connect with, I want to get their attention, I'm liking their stuff, which just helps get them more visibility on Facebook. And I'm commenting so they see my name, and I'm sharing their stuff. And it just helps warm that up so much quicker than if I just were to private message them and say, hey, I've got a great product. You should promote my stuff. It just doesn't work that way.
Oh, totally. So yeah, that's a great way to go. Liking and commenting. Another fantastic tool is introducing them to people. So let's say they're working on something and they make a post related to, I'm trying to get this landing page up or whatever. If you know someone who's good at that, you go, hey, I can introduce you to so-and-so. And it's so easy, but it provides them value. And the more you're doing this and the more you're paying attention to who's online and going to events, you start building this little arsenal of, I know 3 copywriters. I know someone who's great at webinar and offer design. You end up with this network of people where you know their specialty. And then when you meet someone else who has a particular need, I do intros basically almost every day. And then they also start coming back. The other day, I'm not kidding, one person gave me 20 introductions.
Wow.
In one day. And this happens, I wouldn't say I get 20 in a day all the time, but introductions happen almost every day. So like I said, these things start snowballing and start self-perpetuating. When you're starting, is it that fast? Obviously not. But if you're doing techniques like we're talking about, and this doesn't even touch on live events and all of those things, but let's say you're at home alone, it's crickets, it's quiet, you're an entrepreneur wondering why the world's so quiet. This is how you start getting more interaction. And it's not even just about lining up the webinars. In fact, the conversation shouldn't just be about the webinar. It should be learning about them, figuring out what they're up to, finding ways you can contribute ideas or intros. And what really happens is frequently these conversations, they're with smart entrepreneurs. They end up being like these mini masterminds. I feel like I get to have mastermind time every day because I'm having these great conversations.
Yeah. So a lot of really great stuff that we talked about there. And basically all it comes down to is if you want to leverage other people's lists, you want to get into their world, find out how you can first add value to them. Like and share their stuff is just one simple strategy that you can do to build awareness of yourself as a personal brand, and learn more about them and just nurture that relationship before you ever ask for anything in return, and just learn how you can help contribute to them. So a lot of really great things. Now, out of curiosity, Charles, so we're having this conversation in mid-February, right? How long have you been doing this JV strategy for your productivity? and management course?
Okay, so technically, I probably started a little over a year ago, but in reality, I kind of started about 4.5 months ago because I'd been managing Danny Inney's all his partnerships. I was fitting in basically in that 9 months that I was booking full time for Danny. I did 5 partner webinars in 9 months. So nothing impressive there. Now, since my bookings and course have taken off, I book 2 to 6 webinars every week. Several weeks, I'll do 2 webinars a day, and I book them Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So basically, I outdo what I did in 9 months almost every week. So I'm growing the list at about 2,000 a month, and I basically went from I say I had 700. Again, they were mostly LinkedIn contacts. So in a way, I started with almost 0. And I've grown the list to 7,000 in about 4.5 months.
That's great. So basically 0 to 7,000 in 4.5 months, which is that's a good start to any mailing list, especially if you're just getting started. You haven't spent anything on paid traffic and you're building these awesome relationships with top level influencers and you're sharing in the revenue. So that's amazing. So for anyone who's just getting started, you can understand how this is a good strategy to help build your list, make sales in the process, and build goodwill in the marketplace. So I want to talk about something real quick, and I want to get your opinion and get your viewpoint. There's other ways to kind of do the similar strategy if you don't do webinars, but like, why does a webinar allow for this to be such an effective strategy with connecting to other people? Like, why do you think joint venture webinars and joint venture webinar promotions, like, why does it work so well for this strategy?
Okay, it works immensely well because you're providing value up front. Like in my course, actually in my webinar, this is the structure of it. Beyond starting with intros and stuff, but I cover the big why the topic matters. You got to light their imagination and awareness to the bigger impact the message that you're sharing has. The why is super critical. Then I go into a full free training of all of Evernote's core features. So I'm providing a ton of value, like right out of the gate. They didn't pay a penny for it. They're spending their time to learn. And the promise of my course is spend 3 hours in the course. You'll save 3 hours a week going forward. So there's a ton of value wrapped in that promise. And then I offer the deeper dive course, and they've spent an hour plus with me. They've got a bunch of value from me. They see my teaching style, the way I communicate. So for them, basically a minimum of 10% of people that come to my webinars buy, and I've had it as high as 42%. Actually, funny story. I most of my webinars have, it ranges, but a few hundred people. I had a partner, something went wrong with how they promoted it, and one person showed up. This was like last week, which is pretty funny, and I managed to convert them in 15 minutes.
Nice.
So that webinar had 100% conversion.
There you go.
So yeah, it just provides a bunch of value up front. There's no pressure to buy anything. Like they can just take the value. In fact, I even encourage it. I'm like, if you have what you need from what I just gave you for free, awesome. There you go. And it's a win for the partner because I just showed up and provided a free training to their audience. And then of course, for the buyers, they get the deeper dive course that will save them 3 hours a week. And for the partner, they get 50% of the commission in my case. So yeah, the model's brilliant. There's no upfront cost at all to get in front of these people. And another benefit of webinars is as you deliver them, you get better and better at it. Your conversions go up, your messaging gets smoother, Your delivery gets better. I kind of consider it like when you first started, it's like a sketch of this picture. And then the more you do it, you're adding in these brush strokes and color and phrases, and you just tighten the whole message up.
Great. So I think what you're kind of saying is content is king, right? Like webinars are kind of like the ultimate form of content marketing, in my opinion, because you're able to teach, you're able to wow people, and you're able to give them this transformation in a 45 to 60 minute presentation, build yourself up as an authority, give great content to your audience, and at the end, you give them the opportunity to continue down this path of following you through, whether it's a course, whether it's coaching, it doesn't matter. You can sell products on webinars, but yeah, it's a great. That's why I think that's why they're great with joint ventures and webinar swaps.
Yeah, it works really well, and I don't know of really any other way to build audience and list and reputation faster.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even if you're running Facebook ads and, all well and good, and we have common friends who make a great living doing it that way, there's more than one way to do it. I'm a big advocate of this model too, because of the relationships you build. Spending a bunch of time with Facebook is not the same as spending a bunch of time with a bunch of smart entrepreneurs where you're trading ideas, talking about what worked well, what could be better, getting introductions to the next wave of people. I mean, it's a beautiful model.
That's amazing. All right, Charles. So I want to finish up our conversation with one more strategy for how we can line up more affiliate partners and JV partners. And you dropped it very subtly earlier in our conversation, and you talked about live events, right? How do you approach live events? And because what I really want to focus on is a lot of these live events cost money to attend. Like you got not only do you have travel costs, airfare and hotel and food and transportation, you also have the actual event ticket for some of these events. And some of them can be, $500, $1,000, $2,000. I've got one that I'm trying to attend in Banff, Canada, which you might be JVology. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but that's $5,000, right? So how do you approach these events and make sure that you get your biggest bang for your buck without coming across as salesy and, I'm intentionally trying to talk to you to line up a partnership? What's the strategy for a live event?
Okay, so I go to a lot of live events. Many are masterminds, others are bigger conferences. I've been to JVology. So yeah, there's different strategies for those depending on what you're doing, but most any trip I go on pays for itself in various ways. So there's no better way to build relationships than meeting people in person.
Mm-hmm.
How did you and I meet?
Live and in person.
Exactly. And sure, we could have meetings like this. In fact, I have friends in Australia and other places that I meet with like this all the time. You can definitely build relationships remotely, but there is nothing better than in person, going out to dinner, grabbing a drink, like talking in person. It's the relationships I built that way are by far stronger than any other way. So if you want to connect with the movers and shakers, they're the ones that got off their butt and flew to wherever the event is. And then two, it's just go to where the people are. If the movers and shakers in your industry go to an event, then show up there and talk to people. And that's exactly how I started. My first event was Jeff Walker's PLF Live, and I'm still in touch with one of the guys I met at the very first event. We just sat next to each other, and we've had many calls. And so that's kind of the whole point when you're meeting people in person. You're not out to meet everybody. You're out to build 1 to 3 relationships and maybe meet another 10 or 15 people, and certain ones just click and they go from there. So live events in January, I went to 8 cities in 5 countries and did 14 live webinars.
That's amazing. That's incredible. I mean, that sounds like a very productive person. That sounds like you're working 100 hours a day.
Yes, 100 hours a day. Indeed. So, I mean, that's just the pinnacle of where you can take this. Remember, I started out a year ago with like nothing going on. I went to, that's when I decided to start going to live events. I ponied up, I think it was 3 or 4 grand to go to this entrepreneur retreat. And, and dude, I've talked to 3 of those people this last week.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I was promoting Danny Inney's course, and one of the people that bought it, I met at that event.
Yep.
Like this is what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. So one of the cool things that you mentioned is you said movers and shakers go to events, and so what was really fascinating is as soon as I heard that, I'm like, that makes a whole lot of sense, because over the past couple of weeks, I've been talking to my audience about like how to identify hot buyers in any market, like the people who are raising their hand, and like and webinars are great because if somebody signs up for a webinar and attends, because they've had those 2 commitments and they've shown up to a webinar, they're 4 to 6 times more likely to buy just because they showed up to a live webinar. They marked it down in their calendar and they showed up to the event, so they're super interested. Right? It's kind of like they're walking into the car dealership. They have a need for a car already. They walk into the lot and they say, "Okay, show me what you got, and if it makes sense, then I'll buy." Like that. Those are the people who raise their hand and they show up to a live webinar. And so, to kind of take this to another point where you were talking about live events, the movers and shakers who fly to events and they go to events, like those are super high quality people. Like those are the best of the best that you want to connect with. And so it's like, I'm always trying to figure out how to find the best of the best people to connect with. It's like, okay, duh, it makes sense. These people are paying to attend these events. So that's a super high quality connection that you want to meet. And I loved how you said that. And I wanted to make sure that if they're tuning in right now and they're listening, identifying those screaming hot prospects, leads, partners, connections, this is the best way to do it.
Yeah, and one other trick, it's hard to stomach if you're not used to paying a bunch of money to go to events anyway, but I can't recall a time I regretted upgrading to VIP, because that further takes you into the fold of people who are doing pretty incredible things. And it's not like every one of these events you're going to come home with a ton of deals, but like the guy who gave me 20 introductions, he's got a list of 140,000. I met him on an event. I went to the marketer's cruise, and I was in line behind him to get coffee, and we just started chatting and hit it off.
Mm-hmm.
The guy books as many webinars as I do, and we traded. In fact, we hung out at that event. Since then, we've been on at least 5 hours of Skype calls, just doing best practice shares, introduction exchanges. This was because I went to an event and met him in a coffee line. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's how that works. It gets wild pretty quick.
When you put yourself in the same room, in the same venue, opportunity is everywhere. Like it's
ridiculous.
Yeah.
I have way more opportunity than I can even keep up with. I could be booking 10 webinars a week if I had the bandwidth to follow up. The reason I'm doing 2 to 6 is because that's just the bandwidth I have. Otherwise, I could do way more.
That's awesome. So for my audience who's listening right now, if you're listening right now, we just had an awesome interview with Charles Byrd, who has been a maniac at booking partnership webinars, JV webinars, and affiliate webinars, and growing his business organically through non-paid marketing methods. And we talked about why webinars are so great to promote to other people's lists, because you provide content, you provide value, you provide goodwill to the audience, and you give them the opportunity to continue to follow you if it makes sense. And so it's a win-win for the audience that you're promoting it to. It's a win for you, the promoter, and it's a win for the influencer that you're reaching out to. So there's so many benefits with JV webinars and affiliate webinars. And Charles also talked about how to connect with these types of people at live events and in in Facebook groups and how to add goodwill and how to add value to them before you even ask them for a favor of doing a joint promotion. So, Charles, I learned a lot, and we've already talked multiple times on this topic, and it's like it just keeps. Sometimes you need to hear it 10 times before it actually sinks in, but tons of great content today. So let's close this interview out and let's tell people where they can go find you, where they can connect with you and learn more.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So the public face, the list, it's all focused on productivity. And another reason I'm booking so many webinars is because I have these productivity systems. The main product related to applying Evernote to your business and your life, you can find that at killthechaos.pro, killing the chaos of information overload, killthechaos.pro. And then I'm putting on a live event related to joint ventures just because so many of my peers in the industry have asked how I do this. And info on that can be found at purejv.com, purejv.com. So I also consult clients one-to-one on that topic if I'm not doing a live event teaching it. But there's two sources to track me down.
Awesome. So we'll make sure to include your links down in the show notes below, and people can go connect with you and find you. I highly recommend Charles. Charles has been a huge help to me as I'm getting into this JV game and the affiliate game. I've had a couple affiliate webinars myself over the past couple of weeks, and as I'm promoting my own products and services, and so I'm looking forward to growing this just like Charles is teaching. So I can't recommend him enough. And Charles, thanks for hopping on today. We had a great conversation. I enjoyed it as always, and I'm looking forward to staying in touch and meeting up with you at the next event that whatever we're both traveling to. But yeah, for anyone who was wondering that how to work 100 hours a day, I was helping Charles kind of reshape his productivity webinar so it was less focused on how to be an Evernote superstar and how to frame it into a more bigger benefit. And it's like entrepreneurs want to work, like I feel like they would love to work 100 hours a day. But anyway, that was just some brainstorming exercises. That's why I dropped that. So
yeah, good stuff.
Cool. So we're going to wrap up. Charles, thank you so much for hopping on today. For those of you who are sticking around, make sure you tune in to the next episode. If you liked this episode, go ahead and give us a review on iTunes. Share this with your friends, and make sure you go check out Charles's stuff in the show notes below. And we'll see you on the next episode. Take care.
Thanks so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we look forward to giving you the next one. You can also follow and watch the behind-the-scenes look at how I'm personally launching a brand new 6- and 7-figure product from scratch at soldwithwebinars.com/TV. And if you'd like to come hang out with other fellow experts, join our Facebook group at soldwithwebinars.com/experts. Join us next time, and I'll see you there.